beating the ducking allegations, but at what cost, you know? What cost? Charles Oliveira did beat the ducking allegations, guys, and he will go against the gamer, Mateusz Gamrot, you know. Thanks so much. Big support, big fans. Charles Oliveira, a big champion. Guys, I'm sick of it, you know. I am sick of it, you know. I'm sick of doubting, guys. If you don't know the backstory, the lore behind this channel, and me and Charles, I doubt him when I shouldn't. You know, even when I was first saying he was going to destroy Chandler in a week up, I switched up. There's something about my relationship with Charles that I'd be switching up, guys. And this is a matchup that old Kenny would say Gamrot schools him. But so would new Kenny. Like, listen, Gamrot and Charles, it's an interesting stylistic matchup because we know Charles, from what we've seen, at least he struggles with the wrestling style. We've seen it against Islam. We've seen it against Armin, you know. And they actually do have a mutual opponent in Armin. Of course, Gamrot versus Armin was a little bit of a different time, you know. The thing about Gamrot, what makes him so good is his grappling and sprawling and wrestling ability. I don't know why I said sprawling, but like his ability to scramble in these wrestling exchanges and win the scrambles and win the exchanges. Now, I want to make something clear here. Stylistically, I think this fight on paper actually favors Charles Oliveira, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I feel like on the feet, a little bit dangerous for someone like Gamrot to stand and trade. And let's be real, guys. Watching what Gamrot or how Beneil Dariush did Gamrot, you know, that is one of the worst age loss. Like, I swear, Dariush just stuffing his takedowns, forcing it to stand, and then just like throwing clumsy overhands and landing flush on Gamrot and piecing him up left and right. You know, RDA finding times to hurt and rock Gamrot. You know, there's something about Gamrot on the stand-up that's a little bit concerning. Now, against Ludwig Klein, it was such a weird one because we view Ludwig Klein as someone who has great defensive wrestling and very heavy hands and very powerful and explosive striker. But Gamrot kind of went in there and fiddled with him. Like, he played with his... He played with Pickle a little bit. Like, he was playing with him. And I don't really understand that fight fully because we see Dan Hooker stuff some of this guy's takedowns, make it hard. We see Dariush stuffing his takedowns, piecing him up. Then we see Ludwig Klein, who had like one of the best takedown defense percentage-wise going into the fight, get wrestle fucked and then just played with. Now, I'll tell you why I feel like it's a problem for Charles. Charles falls into this low, guys, that he's so confident with himself on the ground and he's a little bit too comfortable on the ground. Now, Gamrot's not necessarily someone who's going to get out-scrambled and put in bad positions. Now, this is the fear I have for Charles Oliveira going into this fight. Oliveira feeling as if he wants to be in a controlling position because he trusts his BJJ. We've seen him nearly like attempt to pull guard against Islam Makhachev. Like, we've seen him like seem okay with being on his back against Islam because he's trying to throw up submissions. But Islam, people thought Islam was in trouble. Islam was never in trouble in that fight. He was comfortable. He wasn't panicking. You know, he looked good there, you know. And then we see situations like the Armin Sarukian fight where like he's jumping guillotines like he should be doing. But he's having these guys in like these scary positions, but he's not finishing the fight, guys. It leads me to believe that as of lately, at least, Charles Oliveira's grappling presence isn't what it used to be, is it? Like, it's not quite, oh my God, Charles just took me down, is over. Like, because having the most submission in the UFC, you would think that like he takes people down, just submits him, he's that good, or if you take him down, you're getting submitted. I haven't seen him like show that side of him, like when he's forcefully grappling and showing some great threats with these submission attempts. I know you gotta be like, oh, but Armin, he was threatening, but like Armin was in trouble, but Armin didn't panic, and his understanding of wrestling got him out that position. His understanding of scrambling and just body transfer, it got him out that position against Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira can't have the delusion that he's going to want to grapple with Gamrot. I think Charles' path to victory actually comes from the feet, and if Charles does not agree with my opinion, he's going to lose this fight. You know, he's just going to lose a fight. If he's okay with getting taken down, being in full guard, if he's the guy on the bottom, it's going to lead him to getting 30-27. I hate when people try to gaslight me like the Armin Sarukian fight was not a 30-27 fight for him. Like, I'm telling you, Charles' only moments, and I'm not saying this for a hatred. Actually, I'm on the Charles Glaze train line because I don't want him to lose this. I'm going to be real, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit later why, but I don't like him being on the ground and trying to be okay with trying to submit someone who's has the skill in the grappling department like Gamrot. Now, like I said, if Charles forces him to stand, I don't see Gamrot being able to stand with someone like the likes of Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira's striking is not the best defensively, but I look at Gamrot, who's not that much of an offensive threat in the striking as even an Armin Sarukian. We saw Armin Sarukian doing some flashy axe kicks and kind of whooping Charles on the feet and on the ground, but Armin's better than Gamrot on the feet. You know why? You know what I want to preface about the Armin versus Gamrot fight? Why Armin lost that fight? Because he went into the fight like, I'm just going to grapple because I feel like I'm a superior grappler, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think Armin kind of won that. It's kind of controversial to me, but it's just a little bit frustrating when people go into fights okay with just having a grapple fest with Gamrot. The film shows and the tape shows that if you go in there and just try to out grapple Gamrot, you're not going to win. If you go in there, try to nullify his wrestling and force him to stand and start trading, you're going to sleep him. If Charles using his grappling awareness for more defensive grappling, as far as like, I'm not going to pull guard, I'm just going to stuff your takedown and keep it standing, I don't see Gamrot beating Charles Oliveira. I feel like stylistically, Charles is a nightmare for that. But I feel like not even the fight style, just the IQ of Charles might get him into trouble here because he might be a little bit too like, dude, I'm going to get in there, I'm going to grapple and let's go. Like, thanks so much, big support, big BJJ, you know, Charles Oliveira, big grappler. And he's going to try to grapple and he's going to get his ass whooped. So there's two ways this fight goes. But it's in the hands of Charles. Now, when people ask me about this fight, I feel like I always say Gamrot, you know. Like, I feel like that's just the normal thing to say because Charles Oliveira struggles with the wrestling style. Even against Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee was kind of mauling Charles before that guillotine. And Kevin Lee's not that great of a wrestler or grappler compared to, like, a Gamrot or the Armins or the Islams, you know. So, I feel like me saying this, Charles has the ability to win based on what Charles wants to do with himself. If Charles wants to go in there with a good game plan, he could win and he should win. If he wants to go in there believing in the BJJ that he has when he hasn't had a submission in 3 years. The last guy he submitted was Justin Gaethje, who's not a bad grappler per se, but he's just not on the level of Gamrot. You can't name someone who's a very talented grappler that Charles has submitted. You know, Gamrot does it. That's a talented grappler. Armin, that's a talented grappler. You know, grappling is wrestling and BJJ and just understanding a body position. Those guys are great grapplers. Islam, great grappler. You know, even Ilia Sapori is a pretty solid grappler. I can't say great grappler because he doesn't do it too often, but we've seen how Ilia looked against him. Now, Ilia was able to like reverse him with some hip tosses and just like body weight transfer. He has a good understanding there. And he was even getting through Charles Oliveira's guard very easily, man. Like, it's almost like the recent Charles I've been seeing. His grappling's a little bit overrated. And maybe it stems from him believing in himself too much or putting himself in awkward positions to just get into the grappling or just get a hold of his opponent. That's not going to do him any justice against Gamrot, guys. Like, zero justice. As a matter of fact, it's going to just get him to lose the fight by 30-27 decision or whatever, like main event or whatever. Whatever it is, it's going to lead him to his loss, you know? This is a fight night. Oh, this is the main event. I'm tripping. This is going to be a 5-rounder, you know? You know what? This is going to be a 5-rounder, you know? Wait, I'm just finding out right now. It's probably going to be a 5-rounder. You know, I'm going to hit you guys with some brutal, honest, like a brutally honest truth, guys. I'm going to say it, you know. I'm going to say it. Charles Oliveira is going to beat Gamrot. Guys, I think he's going to do it. 5 rounds. I'm not saying Charles has great endurance, but Gamrot sometimes, especially in the fights that he's getting his takedown stuffed, it's looking tough. It's looking very weird for him because he starts to look almost gassed when he's stuffed and he's forced to stand and he's taking damage. Damage trumps his gas tank more than anything. You know, I've seen him scramble. He could wrestle you all day, 25 minutes. He could do that a long time. You know, he could wrestle you. Matter of fact, I think against Armin, he showed that he could wrestle for 25 minutes. But against these other guys like Dan Hooker and 3-rounders, he's looking tired after a couple stuffed takedowns. So it's up to Charles, guys. And when I say it's up to Charles, it means me like I'm putting my hope into Charles or my faith into Charles that he goes in with a good game plan because especially in a 5-rounder, against a guy on short notice, you can very much capitalize on a situation like this. And I feel like Gamrot did look good against Ludovic Klein, but it almost looked like Ludovic Klein's grappling just wasn't on par with him, which is a little bit surprising, yes, but we've seen Gamrot go in there against, we've seen Oliveira go in there against the Armins and the Islams already. So he's been in there with some good people. And what did they have over Gamrot? Striking. I do feel like Armin's a better striker than Charles, like, and he's a very slept-on striker, as well as Islam. I've said that before. Islam's going to catch him, he's going to drop him, he's going to finish him, because Islam's good on the feet. I look at Gamrot, I see more of a wrestling-heavy style than a good striker with wrestling, you know, so I feel like that might not be enough to beat Charles Oliveira. And, you know, I'm very back in. Listen, this is the early prediction. Maybe a little bit change, you know, and get closer to fight, but as what I know right now, Charles Oliveira, it's his choice if he wants to win. You know, it comes down to what he wants to do. And I feel like if I'm saying it's a fighter's choice of whether they want to win or not, the fighter should have this awareness. His coaches should have this awareness. So that should lead me to believe for my early predictions that I'm leaning Charles Oliveira to actually beat Gamrot due to him just being the better striker, having more power in his hands. I think he has more power than Dariush, who has some power, but he's pretty sloppy in telegraphing with these overhand attempts that he was actually catching and dropping Gamrot with. You know, Gamrot's solid, but and then even on the ground, you know, Charles has a threat. I'm going Charles, man. You know, this is surprising. Probably a lot of people surprised, brother, but I think Charles is going to be too much for him as of right now. You know, he's going against the number 8 ranked Gamrot. If Charles does lose this, guys, hate to say it, but it's over. Like, that's it for Charles. We're probably not going to see Charles ever again if he loses to Gamrot, who's the number 8 ranked guy. He's going to fall in the rankings, never going to get a shot at the title again, you know. So at least Charles has an opportunity to win. And let's see what he can do against Gamrot. Like I said early, so I'm not going to say too much. But as of right now, I'm thinking Charles Oliveira does have the tools to beat someone like Gamrot. And this can finally help him beat the allegations of he can't beat wrestlers, you know. And I've done this before where I pick him initially, then switch to the other person the week of, like I did to Chandler. Let's try not to switch this time around, Kenny. If I'm starting to switch, say, Kenny, don't sway. But, guys, I'm going to have to go Charles Oliveira to maybe upset Gamrot, who might be the favorite in this fight, and I wouldn't be surprised why. I think Charles Oliveira gets it done. Let me know what you think down below. That's it for me, and God bless. 2, 3, 4.